In today's Outer Worlds 2 video, we'll take a look at all of the 12 legendary armors and helmet pieces you can find on Paradise Island, as well as all of their effects, so let's jump right in. Coming up to number 1, we have the Scoundrel Aegis, which you're going to find very close to the landing pad early on Paradise Island. In this case, if you head over further southwest from the location, you should notice there's a cave opening in the background, which if you follow will bring you to a rift anomaly, and in this case, if you head over all the way towards the end of the path, so all the way until the largest chamber with the final encounter, there should be a large pillar here. And if you go around it to the left side, you're going to find this table with the legendary armor on top of it. Do however keep in mind that some of these enemies are a bit more challenging at this stage, so you may want to come back a bit later after a few more levels. But once you get it, this is how it looks like. Now in my footage, it was kinda missing a leg for some reason, so if you're watching this video after the game comes out, likely that bug has been fixed. However, in terms of special effects, this is going to be a light armor, so it only gives you 2 defenses, but it also has the last stand mechanic. In this case, after using a companion's ability, you gain 150 temporary HP, which can increase up to 650 if you have the leadership skill. And on a quick note, if at any point you found this video useful, leaving a like on it would definitely help me a lot. Moving on to number 2, we have Kaur Kuirass, which is one of the more impressive armors you can get at this stage, and this is something that you get in 2 main ways. One of which is via the main story, so when you get to Fairfields, if you talk and also side with Kaur, she's going to give you a mission to actually sabotage a facility, an armor tech facility all the way east of the island. So if you do end up sabotaging that, as she told you, at the end of that mission, she's going to immediately give that armor set to you. However, there is another way to do this in, especially if you chose not to side with her or to follow her plan to sabotage that facility, and that is by just stealing the item from her war chest instead of this training camp in west of Fairfields. In this case, what you can do is invest a very early on point into pickpocketing. This is a very strong ability that lets you sneak behind the target, crouch down, and then you can just steal the key from her inventory. In this case, once you're done with it, head over to the training camp and inside of this trailer, which belongs to her. Inside, you're going to find the chest you can open either by using the key you stole from her or by passing a quick lockpicking skill check if you have at least level 5 in that. So either of these will work. But once you get it, you're going to notice it doesn't just contain the armor, but even a Corroder legendary weapon that you would have gotten from a follow-up quest later on. So overall, you can literally get some of the best legendaries from early on with minimal investments. In this case, when it comes to the Kuirass, this is what we're working with. Essentially, this is going to be a heavy armor, and its main ability is Adrenaline Shot. So whenever you take damage in combat, any toxicity that you've covered will actually be reduced by 1 point every time you take damage. So in this case, you can actually use this to spam your healing a lot more often. Which brings us to the third item. Technically, it's not really an armor, but a legendary helmet. However, it does kind of look cool. So this is something that you get by helping that facility, the automech repair station, to clear all of the contamination with uranium. That also gives you the shield like we talked in the previous video. So in this case, if you help block the valves before you actually fix everything and you do manage to fix it properly, you can head over into the main building here, going up these stairs in the middle. And once you are at the top, you can speak with the marshal once again, who's going to thank you and as a result give you the dose. So this is going to give you a plus 40% to toxicity drain rate and also gives you the poison mod. So while standing in Zeranium Cloud, you gain 20% crit chance. Also, Zeranium poisoning is gained 50% slower. So obviously this is going to be that radiation contamination, and you can definitely make use of this to gain those benefits, and it helps clearing out your toxicity so you can spam your healing a little bit more often, but there are better options ahead. No matter what you do, if you want to maximize the number of rewards, keep in mind you can still help the facility, and then even though Kaur will not give you the Kuirass, you can just steal it from her. And while we're still on the subject, there's technically another legendary armor we can purchase from the same training grounds back in Fairfields. In this case, if you talk to Officer Cardoza, you're going to notice that she sells the Reclaimation Raiment for about 3,000 to 4,000 credits, depending if you have that discount or not. And this is actually going to fit very well another legendary helmet that we're going to get in just a little bit. Now this is going to give you scrap recycling, which may be worth it because every time you get hit in combat, you have a 5% chance to receive scrap metal or black powder, and the chance is increased to 15% with engineering skill, which you're going to definitely want early on, so you can actually benefit by this quite a bit. But like I said, there is a legendary helmet that fits this build really nicely, and you can actually get this during the same side mission that also gives you the jet boots. In this case, you're going to want to go and talk to Huel, who's pretty much next to the sheriff's office. In this case, he's going to open up a mission very close to the main town called Perilous Journey to the Grove on this side of the map. So when you head over here, you can get both the jet boots from the guy who just tested them, and then also make sure to help out the NPCs at the top. Once you bring them successfully down back to the ground level, one of them will actually give you this really interesting looking monocular target finder. By default, this gives you plus 10% weak spot damage, such as to headshots, which can scale up to another plus 30% at 100 meters, but keep in mind that weapons do have a damage fall off. However, this is literally going to work best, especially with snipers, since they can shoot from very far away. So if you're using this from 100 meters, you're going to get the max possible weak spot damage bonus before factoring in any other mods you can directly apply to the weapons. Which brings us to the 6th legendary item, another legendary armor called Arbiter's armor set, which you're going to get from his training camp here center east from Fairfield. In this case, you may want to come in here once you are high enough level or at least have proper enough damage, and eventually you're going to spawn and defeat Arbiter Nebs. This is actually the NPC you have to be careful about, as this is the one who will drop that armor set for you. This is the way it looks like, by the way. I think it looks pretty nice. It's another heavy armor, and this has the first in perk on it. So whenever you take damage in combat, you gain a stacking plus 1% critical chance, which resets after landing a critical hit or combat ends, which is actually not too bad. And you get the grit enhancing materials, 20% chance to ignore incoming damage while below 50% HP. This is like one of the better mods for armor. So overall, pretty nice if you're in the thick of it and constantly getting damaged. Now moving on to number 7, we have the escape suit, and this is something that you get from this side quest that you're going to begin over at the Agri Center further east as you're making your way towards Westport. So when you get to this facility for the first time, there are quite a lot of higher level enemies. However, if you go into the main building all the way into the back, you're going to find somebody who's trapped behind the locked door, but one that also requires a bunch of mats to create a special sort of concoction. And in this case, that person will require you to visit a couple of locations, one which is a shack just south of that building, and another one which is for some spores you're going to find further up north from the same location. In this case, I recommend getting them both and then heading over back to the same NPC who will teach you a new recipe. Once that is done, this is going to open up that locked door, and now you can head over to the chest inside and pretty much grab that armor from inside of it. This is going to be extremely useful for stealthy builds. If your HP drops below 30%, Escape Protocol mod will basically drop a smoke bomb for you that just conceals your entire existence. It's going to have a 10-minute cooldown, by the way, but it also reduces based on your sneak skill. Actually, in a previous version of the game before a recent patch, this actually used to provide a shield whenever you drop below 30% HP, so it seems it was recently changed, but it's still actually pretty nice. Next one is going to be at number 8, and this is going to be another full-blown armor set. You're going to find it inside of the facility over at the Bridge of the Reverend. Now, this is something that's also going to have a quest line associated with it if you want to just invade it a little bit easier. However, you can also just go inside into the main building, first floor, and check out this massive locked door in the back. And if you have enough points into either explosion, lockpicking, or if you got the Bridge Armory keycard by just defeating the boss in the area, you can immediately open it up, and this is going to give you the bomb suit armor from one of the containers to the right side just as you enter. So in this case, what this does is it gives you extra cushion, so damage taken from explosives is reduced by 90%. May recover parts from mines you step on, so this is going to also increase with the engineering skill. I'm not gonna lie, I still do not recommend stepping on proximity mines. despite what the tooltip says here and despite all of the damage resistances you get with it. It still only takes 2 to 3 of those mines to absolutely blast you away even with it. It's still looking really awesome and tanky, but be careful how you play with it. At most, I would use this against enemy grenades. Now, we do have a couple more to cover before we go to the actual final piece. So one of them is going to be a legendary helmet that you get from inside of the same cave where you get the skeleton matriarch for Inez's questline, the one that unlocks one of her arm grafts right here on this side of the map. So right as you go inside of the cave at the beginning, there's going to be a computer here that Inez can interact with, and if you pay attention to the left side of it on this very table, you're going to get the Malpractice. And this is a really interesting looking one. Again, it's going to give you some toxicity drain rate, in this case bonus, so plus 40% to that, and the misconduct, so while crashing you gain 20% damage and it scales up to 40% with your medical skill. Medicine, in fact, has many perks that reduce the severe consequences of crashing, which happens when you reach 100% toxicity when healing. And because you can actually stack multiple healing potions at the same time, you can easily get to 100% plus very easily and gain this buff right here. So it may be worth it for a later game build. Now, we do actually have one more legendary armor we can get, and this is something that you can acquire via a side quest to retrieve some scientific journals, about 10 of them for a character named Scoundrel. So she's going to be located here in a shack further west of Fairfield, and in this case she's going to give you the pursuit of purloined propaganda. In this case, you need to collect 10 of these scientific journals that you're going to find all across Paradise Island. In this case, I highly encourage you to check especially the piers all around these two islands, both south and up north over here, but there's also a few other locations you can pretty much check these in. And once you got all 10 of them, you can just give them in, and what you're going to receive from them is, yeah, the Townie suit in this case, or the Townie Clothing. Now, I'm not gonna lie, these are not going to be the best option, and you can totally just skip on it. You are going to get a 1 level armor, basically, which gets the charge repulsor, so ignores a single incoming hit every 15 seconds, which feels kind of underwhelming for the amount of effort that goes into collecting all of the 10 scientific journals. If this was buffed, it would have probably been better at about every 5 to 7 seconds. So if it does get buffed, it may become even stronger. Which brings us to the final helmet on today's list, and that's going to be the Gentleperson's Oxonian, which is the top hat that you can basically get from Milver Street, assuming, well, there are a couple of routes to get this in. One of them is by siding with him, which is going to bring you eventually to Westport. In this case, you want to follow his plan to sabotage that location, and if you do that successfully, once you're back, he can give it to you by just finishing his chain of quests. However, just like in the case of Kaur, we can get that way sooner by stealing it from his house. This can either work with at least a level 5 into lockpicking, or if you don't have that but you have the pickpocketing ability, sneak behind him, crouch, and then steal the key to his locker from his inventory. And from this point on, you need to head over to his house, which is just a bit south of the building you just found him in. It's pretty much this big one a little bit further down the street. If you go inside to the left, you should see a large locker that, if you open, will give you the same helmet that he would have given you had you followed his own rules. In this case, it's a solid option to have with some extra critical damage and critical chance, plus marketing manager makes your companion skills to refresh a lot quicker, so it can help in combat, especially if you're going with the speech skill. And that pretty much concludes today's video with all of the legendary armors you can get in the first region. Of course, let me know down in the comments which one of these is the one you went with. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this video at any point, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and also activate those notifications if you want to see more content like this. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.